Hey everybody, I'm Mike. He's Moose. And you could spend hours building a model only to ruin it with one simple mistake. And the most frustrating part is that most of these mistakes are completely avoidable. Today, we're going over the beginner mistakes that can take a good-looking model and turn it into something you're not happy with. And I bet you've made a lot of them. That's all coming up next on Modeling with Mike. All right, and welcome back. And let's start by just going over real quick who this video is for. Number one, it's for the new modelers, the people or kids or adults, either one, who are on their first build. Number two is for the people returning to the hobby after a number of years off and doing their first kit in a number of years. It's for the people who are struggling with their builds, either struggling to finish a build or struggling to make that build look the way they want. And it's also for the experienced modelers who are trying to avoid bad habits or who just need a refresher course. And these are not mistakes that I'm just pointing out to tell you, hey, you're doing it wrong, because I've made a number of these, if not all of them myself. So let's start with, of course, mistake number one, and that's not test fitting parts. Beginners often glue parts immediately without test fitting. And really you have to do 4 things here. Number one is test fitting itself. Before applying any glue, you have to put the parts together to see how they actually fit. This lets you spot gaps, misalignment, or parts that may need adjustment before you permanently attach them. Number 2, you have to check alignment. Make sure parts are straight or level and properly positioned before you glue sets. A small alignment problem early in the build can become a very noticeable one once the rest of the model is assembled. Number 3 is removing obstructions. In other words, cleaning up the part. Sometimes paint, flash, ejector pin marks, or even a small bit of excess plastic can prevent 2 parts from fitting correctly. Removing those obstructions before assembly can turn a frustrating fit into a clean one. And number 4, you actually have to understand how parts actually fit. Instructions don't always make it obvious how 2 parts come together, and forcing them can cause problems. Test fitting gives you a chance to study the parts and figure out the correct orientation and assembly sequence before committing with glue. Mistake number 2 is using too much glue. And how do you know when you've used too much glue? You have 4 different things here that I come up with. Number 1, you get glue squeezed out of the seams. When you apply too much plastic cement, it can squeeze out when you press the parts together. Instead of creating a cleaner joint, you can end up with the raised, messy seam that requires additional sanding and cleanup. You can get melted plastic. Plastic cement works by actually softening and melting the plastic. so the two pieces can bond together. Too much glue or leaving it pooled in one area can soften the plastic excessively and potentially distort or destroy fine details. You can leave glue marks. Excess glue can leave shiny, discolored, or uneven areas on the surface, especially if it gets onto parts that aren't supposed to be glued. These marks can remain visible even after painting if the underlying surface isn't properly repaired, and you can damage your surface detail. When excessive cement flows over panel lines, rivets, raised details, or other surface features, it can soften or even erase them. Once that detail is gone, restoring it can be considerably more difficult than simply applying the right amount of glue in the first place. Now remember, more glue does not necessarily mean a stronger or better joint. You gotta apply glue where it's needed, not all over the place. So this leads us to mistake number 3, which is trying to hide bad seams with paint. You got to remember 3 things here. Number 1, paint doesn't magically hide bad seams. Paint can actually make a bad seam more noticeable by highlighting changes in the surface. If you can see or feel a gap before painting, there's a good chance you'll still see it or see it even more clearly afterward. Number 2, primer can reveal problems. Primer is an excellent way to inspect your work before committing to final colors. It can expose scratches, uneven sanding, gaps, and seams that may have been difficult to see on bare plastic. And sanding and filling should happen before the final paint. Once you've identified a bad seam or gap, fix it before applying your final colors. Sanding, filling, and repriming give you a smooth surface so the final paint has a much better foundation. Mistake number 4 is skipping surface preparation. Why do you have to have surface preparation in the first place? 5 reasons. Number 1, finger oils. The natural oils from your skin can transfer onto the plastic while you're handling the model. These oils can prevent paint from sticking properly and may cause uneven coverage or fisheyes. Number 2 is dust. Dust, lint, and tiny particles can settle on the model and become trapped under the paint. Even small amounts can leave a rough or gritty finish that becomes especially noticeable under a gloss coat. Number 3, you have mold release residue. Some modelers clean new plastic parts to remove manufacturing residue or other contaminants left on the surface. If that residue is present, it can interfere with paint adhesion and cause the paint to separate and behave unpredictably. Number 4, poorly prepared surfaces. Scratches, sanding marks, seams, fingerprints, and other imperfections can all show through the paint. Taking a few minutes to inspect and prepare the surface beforehand can save you from having to redo an entire paint job. And 5, paint adhesion. Good surface prep gives your primer or paint something clean and consistent to grip. Without it, paint may scratch, peel, or lift more easily, especially on areas that are frequently handled. Mistake number 5 is spraying paint too heavily. Now, if someone tries to go cover model in one pass, more than likely you'll have too much paint, and that could lead to 5 different things. Number 1 is runs. When you spray too much paint in one pass, gravity can pull the excess paint downward, creating visible runs or curtains. These can be especially difficult to fix once the paint is dried. Number 2, you can have loss of detail. Heavy coats can build up around panel lines, rivets, raised details, and other fine features. If you repeatedly apply too much paint, those details can become softened or completely buried. Number 3 is our old friend orange peel. Spraying too heavily can leave the surface with a rough, textured appearance that resembles the peel of an orange. This usually happens when the paint isn't able to level properly before it begins to dry. Number 4, you can get an uneven finish. A heavy application doesn't necessarily give you better coverage. It can actually create areas that are thicker, wetter, or more glossier than the others. It can leave the model looking blotchy or inconsistent once the paint dries. And number 5 is the obvious, longer drying times. The more paint you put on a model, the more solvent and paint have to evaporate before the surface can properly dry. A heavy coat can remain soft or tacky much longer, making it easier to leave fingerprints or damage the finish. So remember, several light coats is much better than one heavy one. Mistake number 6, handling the model before the paint has cured. And this could lead to 4 different problems. Number 1, fingerprints. Even if paint feels dry to the touch, it may still be soft underneath. Handling the model too soon can leave fingerprints or impressions that become very difficult to remove without repainting. Number 2, you can get smudges. Touching a partly cured surface can move or smear the paint, especially with certain acrylics and thin coats. What looked like a smooth finish can quickly turn into a noticeable blemish. Number 3, you can get damaged paint. Handling the model before the paint is fully cured can cause the paint to lift, chip, or rub away. This is especially common on sharp edges or in areas that receive a lot of handling. And number 4, you can get marks around edges. Gripping the model around edges, corners, or raised details can leave shiny or worn-looking marks where your fingers contacted the surface. These areas may need to be touched up, which can create additional work that could have been avoided by simply allowing the paint more time to dry and cure. Now, we need to go over what the difference is between dried and cured. Dry is when the top layer of the paint has dried so you can touch it without any paint coming on your finger. That's what's called dry to the touch. You could have dry to the touch on the top layer with your bottom layers still being soft and not dry. When those become dry all the way to the surface of the plastic, that's what's called fully cured. That is when every bit of the paint is dry. It can be handled. You can, depending on the durability of the paint, you can come up and flick it with your finger and not damage it. That's fully cured. So, mistake number 7 is rushing the decals. When you're dealing with decals, remember these 6 points. You have to cut your decals properly. Trim each decal as close to the printed image as practical, especially when dealing with individual markings. This reduces excess carrier film and makes the decal easier to position and less noticeable on the model. You have to get the surface ready. Decals generally behave better on a smooth, clean surface than on a rough or heavily textured paint. A properly prepared surface helps the decal conform to the model and reduces the chances of trapped air underneath it. In other words, use a gloss coat. Number 3, you have to use enough water. Give the decal enough water to loosen it from the backing paper without allowing it to become totally uncontrollable. Too little water can make the decal difficult to move, while too much can make it difficult to position precisely. Number 4, you have to position the decal before committing. Once the decal is on the model, take your time getting it into exactly the right position before removing excess moisture. Small adjustments at this stage are much easier than trying to reposition a decal after it has started to set. Number 5, avoiding silvering. Silvering occurs when tiny pockets of air become trapped underneath the clear carrier film, creating a cloudy or silvery appearance. Applying decals to a smooth surface or using an appropriate decal setting solution can greatly reduce this problem. And finally, you have to allow the decals to settle. Once the decal is positioned, give it time to properly adhere to and conform to the surface before handling or clear coating the model. Setting solutions can help the decal conform to the panel lines of surface details, but they need time to do their job. And that leads us to mistake number 8, which is skipping the clear coat. And why does having a clear coat even matter? Well, 4 reasons. Number 1, decal adhesion, just like we just discussed. A clear coat can provide a smoother surface for decals to adhere to, helping them sit down properly and reducing the chance of silvering. It also gives you a much more consistent surface when applying decal setting solutions. It gives you surface protection. A clear coat provides a protective layer over your paintwork, helping shield it from handling, masking, weathering, or other steps that could otherwise damage the surface. Number 3, you have gloss versus matte finishes. The type of clear coat you choose affects the final appearance of the model. A gloss coat gives you a smooth, shiny surface, while a matte coat removes the shine and can give the model a more realistic painted look. And number 4, it protects your weathering. Once you've spent time applying washes, pigments, oils, or other weathering effects, a clear coat can help lock those effects into place. It also allows you to continue handling the model without as easily disturbing the work you've already done. Now, mistake number 9 is going too far with weathering. Now remember, weathering should complement the model rather than overwhelm it. In other words, weathering is meant to enhance the appearance of the model by suggesting how it might look after real-world use, not become the most noticeable thing on the model. Start subtle and bring up the effects gradually, because it's much easier to add more weathering than it is to remove way too much. Remember, steady, subtle weathering brings a convincing model. Anything past that would be weathering that's overdone. Mistake number 10 is trying to fix everything at once. The beginner mindset is, oh God, I made a mistake. I gotta fix it right now. Sometimes that can make things worse. What you want to do is number one, just stop. When something goes wrong, resist the urge to immediately grab your tools and start fixing it. Taking a moment to stop can prevent a small mistake from becoming a much bigger one. After you stop, look at the problem. Carefully examine what actually went wrong before deciding what to do next. Sometimes what looks like a major problem, it has a simple solution, while an unnecessary fix can make it worse. Remember to let things dry or cure. If you just apply glue, paint, clear coat, or weathering, give it a chance to properly dry or cure before attempting a repair. Trying to work on a soft surface can smear, lift, or damage the finish even further. Decide on the best solution. Think through your options before taking action and consider whether the problem actually needs to be fixed immediately. Sometimes the best solution is to leave something alone rather than risk damaging the surrounding work. And finally, fix one problem at a time. Focus on the most important problem first instead of trying to correct several things simultaneously. Working methodically makes it easier to see your progress and greatly reduces the chance of creating another mistake while fixing the first one. And number 11, which is the biggest mistake, and it's added because the mistake is rushing the build. Many of these mistakes, if not all of them, can be caused by one underlying problem, and that's rushing. Rushing leads to mistakes such as poor fit. Rushing can cause you to glue parts together before you properly test fitted them or cleaned up the mating surfaces. Few extra minutes of preparation can prevent gaps, steps, or parts that simply don't sit correctly. Number 2, it leads to excess glue. When you're rushing, it's tempting to use more glue because you want the parts to stick immediately. Unfortunately, that can lead to glue squeezing out, melted plastic, and unnecessary cleanup. Rushing can lead to bad seams. Rushing the assembly process often means moving on before seams have been properly filled, sanded, and inspected. Once paint goes on, those unfinished seams can become much more obvious. Number 4, rushing leads to heavy paint. When you're trying to finish quickly, it's easy to apply too much paint in an attempt to get complete coverage in one pass. The result can be runs, loss of detail, uneven coverage, or a rough finish. Number 5, it leads to damaged decals. Decals require patience, especially when positioning and settling them onto the model. Rushing can lead to crooked decals, tearing, silvering, or accidentally damaging decals that you've already applied. It could lead to poor weathering. Weathering works best when it's built up gradually and deliberately. When you rush, it's easy to apply too much of a wash, a pigment, chipping, or other effect and end up with a model that looks overdone rather than realistically used. And finally, rushing leads to misaligned parts. Rushing can lead you to glue a part before you've checked its position from multiple angles. A small alignment error on one part can become increasingly obvious as additional components are added to the model. If you've noticed, All those 7 things I've told you about were 7 of the 10 mistakes in here. Weird, isn't it? So let's recap by giving you 3 things to remember. 3 rules to follow, if you will. Number 1, test fit everything. Test fit, test fit, test fit. It's the golden rule of modeling. Just test fit. So, rule number 1, test fit everything. Rule number 2, don't rush anything. We've just gone over 10 reasons why you don't rush anything. And then number 3, if something looks wrong, stop and fix it before moving on. Fixing one problem now is a lot better and a lot easier than fixing a whole list of problems at the end of your build. So that leads me to the question. What's the modeling mistake you made when you were starting out that you wish somebody had warned you about? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and you might save another beginner from making the same mistake. Don't forget about all the discount codes and all the links to everything that has to do with the channel. Especially right now, gallery website. Gallery days are happening right now, and they end September 15th. So go to Gallery's website, get a bunch of great deals, and on top of their sale prices, if you use my promo code MWMike at checkout, you'll get an extra 10% off on top of the sale price. So don't forget about all those. And also the merch store. I have that link. It's all on the video description. Don't forget about memberships. $1.99 a month. You find that button either on the channel description or the video description. Next video will be how to build confidence as a beginner modeler. I'll give you a number of ways to do that. So that's next video. So that's all I got for you. You know what we always say around here. Never stop pushing your modeling boundaries. And until next time, we will see you later. Bye-bye.